Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Silent Paths, Wild Hearts. Episode 6. Chapter 38. Natalia POV. Theo grabbed some suits and button-ups for Helios easily enough, clearly not lying about being his shopper for centuries. I, on the other hand, hadn't been out shopping in about 2 decades. Having stayed in small villages, avoiding life in general. I didn't know where to go, so I let Celeste lead me to a few stores. She asked me what I needed before she chose a few stores to take me to. We chatted while I looked for things that fit my style of clothing. I needed comfortable but formal clothes. I hadn't had to wear anything other than jeans and shirts and the occasional skirt in so long. Celeste was surprisingly helpful and understanding as I tried on set after set and got more frustrated as I went. Things felt either constricting or stiff. When Celeste noticed my frustration, she told me about the first time she'd gone shopping after she met Marcus and relaxed a little as I chuckled at her story. In the end, we actually found a store that was more my style and the clothes were appropriate for the council and formal events. We still had a little over 2 hours to dinner and I asked Celeste to go get a pedicure. On the way there, I made a quick stop at Victoria's Secret, much to the chagrin of Gabriel and Theo, who had to wait outside. I picked up some bras and underwear and then, just to keep things fun, I grabbed a couple sets of lingerie. Theo's attitude seemed to shift a little halfway through the nail salon appointment and he was anxious to head back. I didn't need to ask. I knew something must have happened. I decided to try something while we were getting a foot massage. What changed? I mind-linked Theo, happy to see it connected. The cameras went back on at the lab. It's not the best news. We need to head straight back after your pedicure, he said. Are we in danger now? We could finish the pedicure now. I asked. No, we're fine right now. It just happened. We should be fine for at least a few days. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I just hate not knowing details. If we were in danger, Helios would have told me to bring you back now. He assured me. I relaxed a little at that. He had a point. Still, I thought I'd text Helios, but he basically said the same thing as Theo. I chatted with Celeste a bit more as we enjoyed the rest of the pedicure. We walked into the pack house a bit later and my steps got a little faster. Theo chuckled behind me as he followed with Helios bags. I threw him a dirty look and ignored him. I went into the room to find him sitting in the same place I had left him, though I doubted he'd been there the entire afternoon. Theo placed the bags inside the room and said he was going to find Sebastian to debrief and it was my turn to smirk at him as he left. As soon as the door clicked closed, Helios was crushing me against it. I thought for a moment that he was wanting to pick up where we left off earlier, but then became concerned when all he did was crush me against him and bury his face in my neck. I let him take his fill before I parted our bodies slightly. Helios? I asked, but he just pushed his head back into my neck. I put my arms around him and didn't ask anything until I felt his heart steady. I felt his lips on my neck sucking lightly. His arms, previously caging me to him, slid down to my hips to hold me flushed against his body. I felt his member harden as he kept giving my neck butterfly kisses. I pulled his head from my neck and up to my face. I held his gaze for a moment and I felt like he was searching my soul. He once again held me to him as if I was going to disappear from his arms. There was fear and some sort of desperation in his eyes before he crushed his lips against mine. I felt my heart stop as he kissed me. Hestia was howling in my head at the look in his eyes. He was kissing me with such need and fear that I felt as though his emotions were enveloping my soul. What could have been so bad that it left him feeling this way? Once we came up for air, Helios picked me up and laid me on the bed. He climbed in and cradled me in his arms. Helios, what happened? I asked him. I held him tightly to me, trying to soothe his fear. He was quiet for such a long time that I thought he wouldn't answer me. The man in charge of the shifter kidnappings knows about you now, Natalia. He's ordered all of his people to find you. He believes you would speed up his research. Hestia growled in my head as I processed his words. What do they know about me, other than I was a white wolf? Just that I, or rather Ramon de la Luz, bought you and wouldn't give you up. He said, so, they can't find us yet. Not yet. I sighed as my thoughts went everywhere. I was trying to tamp down my flight or fight instincts. It wasn't unusual for me to be hunted as a white wolf. Through the years, I'd learned to keep moving to avoid the wrong people finding out about me or catching up with me. Now, I had a chance at something permanent. I didn't want to leave, even though my first instinct was to run. There was another layer added to it now too. I had grown to love everyone here. I didn't want to put them in danger, asking them to protect me because I wanted to have my happily ever after. I am not sure how long I was lost in my own thoughts when I felt Helios shaking me. Where did you go? He asked, concern in his eyes. I was just thinking, I don't want to put anyone in danger. Maybe I didn't get a chance to finish my sentence. Helios crushed his lips to mine in an angry, desperate kiss. When he pulled back, I could see that same anger and desperation in his eyes. Don't say what you're going to say. I don't want to hear anything but we'll figure this out, he pleaded. I've been running from people like him for 7 centuries, Helios. It's all I've known, I said quietly. We start training starting tomorrow. We're going to give all the information we have to the council. This problem concerns all the shifters and the vampires. We will find him and end this. Don't go anywhere. I need you. You are the one thing I've ever needed. I love you, Natalia. You said you'd give me a chance. Give me a chance to prove to you that I can protect you. Please don't run, he said as he buried his face in my neck again. His entire body was tense as he waited for my answer and I felt the tears leaving my face as a sob shook my entire body. Hearing his words cleared my thoughts and I made my decision. I love you, Helios. I won't leave you, but I also want to learn to defend myself. I want to train too. If we're going to be a pack of warriors, I need to be one too. He looked into my face and I could see the relief in his eyes. You are getting training too. I won't leave you unable to defend yourself. He brushed his lips with mine. Thank you, he whispered. His eyes glazed over and he sighed once it cleared. Dinner is ready. Theo said Marcus is letting the other shifters come up for dinner since this morning was such a success. A couple decided on eating in the basement so they wouldn't get overwhelmed. Okay, I said, and when he didn't move I added, I can't move with you on top of me. He chuckled. 5 more minutes, he said, and rolled us over so I was on his chest. I just want to hold you for 5 more minutes, mi amor, he said huskily, and all I could do was cuddle with him. His words made my heart melt. I thought we were training, not getting tortured. I huffed as I rubbed the cramp in my side. Dude, we haven't even started training. This is just warm-up laps, Danny laughed at me. Come on, get up. We still have 3 hours left. Maybe I wouldn't be so winded if someone hadn't tired me out this morning, I snapped, taking the hand he offered. Danny laughed and walked back towards the rest of the group. Helios smirked. Were you always this horny with your other partners, or is this an alpha wolf thing? I asked him as we started walking towards the training grounds. I stopped when I noticed Helios wasn't beside me anymore. I turned to look back at him looking at me. What? What did I say? I asked, confused. I've never, I told you. There's never been anyone but you, he said. My jaw fell open. When did you tell me? The first time. You told me you weren't like the others and I told you there had never been any others, he responded. You seriously haven't been with anyone else? You're almost 2,000 years old, I asked skeptically. I was a little busy with my revenge and well, he shifted uncomfortably. What? Even though I was convinced what I was doing was right, I never thought I deserved. He looked away. My heart broke for him when he said that. He didn't think he deserved to be loved. I sighed and mind-linked him. Well, if it makes you feel any better, you like you for 1,000 years. I saw him smirk and shook my head. Let's join the rest, Alpha, we have a lot of training to catch up to. He caught up to me and squeezed me as he said, don't get too exhausted. Ezekiel has been begging me for a run with Hestia later today. I groaned while Hestia purred in my head at the thought. Please Nat, I really want to meet my mate too, Hestia begged. I will do my best to survive this training then. I told her, not like I would deny her time with her mate when I got to spend every day with Helios. She deserved to have her connection to her mate too. Maybe we can ask them to mark us soon. Do you think he would this early? I hope so. I want to talk to Ezekiel, she said. We were worried that Helios hadn't brought it up at all. We weren't sure if he wasn't ready or something was holding him back. The ceremony was supposed to be a little after lunch, so after training, I grabbed a quick sandwich and ran upstairs to shower and change. Since Celeste decided to have a celebration after the ceremony, I needed to be a little more put together than normal, as this would technically be my first function as a future Luna. I'm glad Celeste had suggested a stop at the makeup store. But first things first, my muscles were sore. I let the tub fill with hot water and some oils while I pulled out my outfit. A purple lantern sleeve bustier crop top with a ruched black blazer, black pants, and some black cross-strap flats. I was removing my clothes in the bathroom when I heard the door of the room open. Natalia, are you in here? Helios' voice came from the other side of the door. Yep. The door's open, I said as I removed my clothes and sunk into the hot, scented water. I didn't see you at lunch. Are you okay? he asked as he opened the door. I just needed a soak. I've never really trained past basic defense. I've always been more flight than fight. I'll be ready for the ceremony, I assured him. Want some company? He asked and I turned my head to look back at him. I gave him a lazy smile. Be my guest, but don't try any of your shenanigans. This body wasn't meant to take so much battle training. I watched him take off his shirt and couldn't stop myself from licking my lips. He smirked at me as he removed his jeans. Move forward. I promised to behave. I moved forward on the tub and he slipped in behind me. When he was settled, he wrapped his arms around me and pulled me back until I was resting on his chest. He left his arms on my stomach and put his chin on my neck as I let myself relax against him. I'm nervous about today, he said. Why? It's the point of no return. When my people were my warriors, I never forced them. I treated them right, but at the end of the day, they went home and I didn't see them until we had to work. Being their alpha, I am responsible for their welfare and their happiness. Then we have the other shifters, I am afraid of failing them, he said quietly. Theo, Sebastian, and Gonzalo wouldn't have stayed if they didn't believe in you, and your warriors wouldn't be coming back if they didn't trust you to lead them well. Give yourself more credit. You've been their alpha longer than you realize. Helios chuckled lightly and I felt the vibrations from his chest down my entire body, his breath in my ear sent little shivers down my body. That's along the same lines of what Marcus said, he said. Then you should take it as confirmation, my mighty god of war. You are a leader. Even before I knew who you were, I knew you were a leader. Your aura commanded attention and respect. He placed a small kiss on my ear. Thank you, how can I repay your faith in me? He asked as his fingers danced down my stomach towards my folds. I swallowed a moan. We don't have enough time for what you're thinking about, I said as I wiggled against his erection. We do. Celeste has some sort of surprise for us. We don't have to be down until 2 p.m. I started breathing heavily as I felt his fingers part my folds. Just relax, let me help you feel good, he whispered in my ears. I moaned as I let my head fall back onto his chest. That's it, amor. Just let your muscles relax. Let me give you pleasure, he whispered. He played with me. He put his chin back on my shoulder as he waited for me to come down from my high. He kissed my cheek. My heart was full of love for this man that I'd almost pushed away. Helios POV, we should finish up and change. I want to go down and get the shifters organized for the ceremony, I told Natalia. I hated making her move now that she looked so relaxed in my arms, but I had no idea what Celeste had planned and I didn't want to be late. What about you? She said sleepily. I'm fine, I told her and chuckled as she pouted. You can do whatever you want with this beast tonight. If you have any energy after the ceremony, party, and that run you promised Ezekiel, I told her and laughed as she groaned. Ezekiel wagged his tail. He hadn't stopped talking about his run with Hestia tonight. Too many activities for one day. We should skip the ceremony and just let our wolves run, she said as she stood up. She stopped a little bit from my face, and I couldn't help nipping a tiny bite on it and delighting in the surprised yip that came from her. She looked down at me as I grinned up at her glare. You have an unhealthy appreciation of me. I think it's just right, I said, and Ezekiel agreed with me. She rolled her eyes at me as I stepped out of the bath. I stood and took the towel she offered and wrapped it around my waist. We walked out of the bathroom, and I went into the closet to where we'd put the clothes Theo had bought for me. I grabbed a blue button-down, black pants. I walked out as Natalia was putting on her panties and watched her plentiful breasts bobbing as she shimmied them up. I walked back into the closet before I lost control and took her right where she stood. Then we'd be late. I walked back out again while buttoning up my shirt. I heard a grunt coming from the bed and looked up to see Natalia with a compact in her hand and some sort of applicator frozen halfway to her face. What? I asked, wondering which part of what I was wearing was offensive. Get out of here before I say * the ceremony and jump your bones, she said, and my eyes widened at her words. I looked back down at my clothes. Which part caused that reaction? Because I would have to buy another 20 of them if it would mean I got that reaction from her again. Helios, I'm serious. I'm struggling to control Hestia. Go before we have to explain why we're late, she said, and I could see the lust in her almost fully black eyes. I smirked. Don't worry, Hestia, you can take them off later if they're that offensive to you. I turned and walked out as I heard a purr coming from the bed. Ezekiel was also purring in the back of my head. I walked down and noticed the pack house was a bit empty. I walked towards the kitchen and I heard Zach giving instructions. I walked in to see the first of the shifters walking out of the basement with Celeste. Gabriel, as usual, was just behind her. Helios. I'm glad you're here. We need them to get onto the bus. We're taking you on a little surprise trip for your ceremony, she said, and I noticed the same older woman that she'd walked out for breakfast, was hanging onto her again. What is your name? I asked her. Miroslava, Alpha, she said in a slight accent. Are you hurt? I asked her. Alpha. I can't put much weight on my right foot. It's an old injury, so the Luna couldn't heal it. I'll help you to the bus and then we'll look into getting you a cane or a walker, okay? I told her. She smiled at me and took my arm when I offered it. Let's go to the bus. Natalia will be down shortly. The 5 of you will be going with Marcus and me. Everyone else is already there making sure everything is ready. Celeste told me and I was going to ask her where we were going, but she beat me to it by saying, it wouldn't be a surprise if I told you now, would it? I shook my head and smiled as I helped Miroslava get on the bus. I went back down and allowed everyone else to file in. Marcus parked an SUV behind the bus. The pups are with Dad, Tulai. He told her. We're almost ready. Just waiting for everyone to come down. She told him as he leaned in to kiss her. I saw Theo and Sebastian coming down the stairs, Gonzalo trailing behind them. What's happening? They asked. Celeste has a surprise for all of you, so kindly climb into the SUV and put on the blindfolds, Marcus said. They looked at me and I shrugged. I don't know any more than you do. Know what? Natalia's voice from behind me made me turn around. My heart rate sped up as I saw her walking down the steps. She looked like she had walked out of my dreams. The pants and shirt accentuated every beautiful curve in my woman. Her eyes were decorated by a smoky glittery blue eyeshadow, making the amber in her eyes glow, and her lips were a deep maroon that reminded me of raspberry jam, ready to lick clean. Can we skip all this and just go back upstairs? I want us to worship that body for a few more centuries before we deal with anything else, Ezekiel begged. You're drooling, my son god, she whispered as she got to my side. Nat. You look amazing. I wish I was that good at makeup. Celeste said as she came over and took my maid away from my side, guiding her to the SUV. I loved Celeste, I really did, but right now, she was the reason why my beautiful mate left my side and I wanted to throw a temper tantrum about it. Probably for the best, Helios. I don't think Nat would appreciate you tearing off her new clothes in public. Gonzalo patted my shoulder, making Marcus laugh. I narrowed my eyes at him. Et2, Marcus. He raised his hands in surrender and walked over to the driver's side of the SUV. The bus was beginning to pull away. I climbed into the back after Gonzalo. Natalia was already sitting blindfolded next to me. Be sure to keep the blindfold. I have some plans for it and some ties later tonight. Her voice came into my mind. You're going to be the death of me. How am I supposed to stop from getting hard at those words? I told her and I heard her giggle next to me. We drove for about 35 minutes before I felt the SUV begin to slow. I put my hand over the blindfold and I heard Celeste's panicked voice from the front seat. Don't take them off until we say. I groaned and put my hand down. We finally stopped and I heard the car door open. Everything is ready, Tulai. I heard Marcus say. I felt her hand on my arm and let her lead me to just in front of the SUV. Don't move. I have to get the boys out too, she said. I felt sparks at my side and instinctively wrapped my arm around Natalia. I felt someone to my right and, by the smell, I could tell that it was Gonzalo. Okay. On 3, you can remove your blindfolds, she said and I could hear the excitement in her voice. 1, 2, 3. She said. I removed my blindfold and I felt my entire body go rigid. I gripped Natalia's waist as I took in the view in front of me. Where are we? Natalia asked, noticing the change in everyone's body language. Why does everyone look like they just saw a puppy being murdered? Why did you bring us here? Of all places, Celeste, why? Theo asked, and I could hear the guilt and hurt in his voice. I still couldn't move. My eyes were frozen on the worst atrocity I had been a part of in 2,000 years. I heard Marcus sigh, I was afraid of this. Tulai, you need to explain. Helios. Natalia's voice came from my side. I looked down at her and I couldn't hold her gaze for very long. I looked down at the ground in shame as I felt a tear leave my face. My legs wanted to give in and drop me to my knees. Guys, please look at me, Celeste said. Helios? I didn't bring you here to make you feel like this. This is a happy moment. I snapped my head up at that. You are joking, right? What happiness is there in bringing me to the place where your parents and your pack were massacred because of a deal I made with psychopaths? Natalia gasped next to me, finally realizing where we were. It's not about the past, Helios. I told you back in Mexico. I don't want to live in the past. You shouldn't either. This place holds one of the worst memories for me, yes, but it also holds some of the best. Sky Moon was where I spent 8 years with my parents, where I had visions of Marcus as a little girl. I had a happy childhood here, however short it was. This is also where I went when I needed to heal last year and visited Selene. This place holds a lot more good than bad. I looked at her in disbelief. She walked over to the gate, which had the middle portion covered by a plank of wood. It's time this place made more good memories. It's time it had life again. She let the plank fall and my jaw dropped with it. Welcome to the new pack grounds of the Guardian Moon Pack, she said as she revealed the 2 warrior wolves howling at a half moon with a half sun completing the circle. You're giving us pack grounds? Natalia asked. You're giving us your family's pack grounds? Gonzalo asked at the same time. I am giving you a fresh start. A place to build a life. A clean slate. We've spent the last month and a half renovating and updating the pack house. There was some fire damage in the master bedroom from my visit to Selene. The wiring has been inspected and brought up to code. Water, electricity, and all utilities are up and running as of this morning. We updated all the kitchen appliances and set up a few couches and TVs. There are beds and sheets in all the rooms. We also set up a few rooms with bunk beds for the ones that feel better sleeping together. We didn't decorate anything, so you can make it your home. We all just stood there gaping at her. Marcus, help, she said meekly. I could see her lips shaking as if she wanted to cry. Guys, she means it. She's not wanting to punish you. She wants you to succeed. We both do. We've got temporary fencing all around the property so the shifters can have a bit more freedom until they feel at home. It's not built yet, but we've also got designs for a bridge to go over the river. It will connect both pack grounds so you can have access to the school and hospital in Crescent Moon until your pack is big enough to need one of your own. We're your sponsors, so the council will not have any objections to the arrangement. This is the last of the boxes you needed to tick to become a sanctioned pack, he said. When we still didn't say anything, he added, we still have a ceremony and party to do. Can we get some reactions or at least hesitant acceptance? We already have the paperwork drawn up to change the ownership of the deed, so it will be awkward if oof, he said as Sebastian and Theo ran up and sandwiched him in a hug. Gonzalo went up to Celeste and gave her a big hug. When he pulled away, Celeste walked towards me. Natalia hugged her and then moved towards where Gonzalo was standing behind her. Helios, she asked. I have no words, Celeste. I took everything from you. I took your family, your freedom, your childhood, and somehow, you've not only forgiven me, but you've given me everything without asking a single thing in return. How are you able to do this? I said, as I felt more tears falling from my eyes. I didn't understand how she could be this forgiving. It's simple. You are Kara's brother. That makes you my brother. You've made mistakes and you're harder on yourself than I could ever be. You're dedicating your life to protecting others. How can I possibly not support that? She smiled at me. I shook my head in disbelief and then I saw her eyes flash and she added fiercely, listen here. I'm pregnant and hormonal. You make me cry and I'll set your butt on fire. Can you please take this? I will be happier with you all nearby. This is as much for me as it is for Oof, she said as I crushed her with a hug. Can't breathe, she huffed after a moment. I pulled away from her and gave her a kiss on the forehead. I can't begin to express how grateful I am to have kidnapped you, I said, and everyone chuckled at my words. You've single-handedly changed everything in my life for the better. You're the family I always wished I had for so long. I gave her a smaller hug as I saw her begin to sniffle. All right, everyone's waiting for us. Don't cry, Tulai or Atlas will start asking for heads, Marcus said as Celeste walked back and settled into his open arms. He looked at me then and smiled. I told you to trust your sister. I just didn't mention which one. Natalia came back to my side. Are you okay? She asked. I nodded and gave her a deep kiss on the lips. My emotions were all over the place, but, above all, I was happy. We climbed back into the SUV after opening the gate and drove through. Everything is set up in the backyard, Marcus explained as we stopped at the front of the pack house. We climbed out of the SUV and headed up the stairs. I laced my fingers through Natalia's as we passed through the double doors. I had only ever been in here once. After I found out Blood Moon had massacred the entire pack, I had brought my warriors here to help me find Celeste and to see if anyone was still somehow alive that we could save. The entire place had been full of blood and broken furniture. I half expected it to see that same scene as I walked through the doors. Instead, there were clean walls and new furniture. There was not a speck of dust anywhere. We'll give you the tour later, and don't think you need to move in right away. You can make whatever changes you need before you move, Marcus said as he led us to the backyard, where everyone was waiting. Natalia POV, this is a strange new world I'm finding myself in, I think, as I take the pack oath last. I haven't been a part of a pack in centuries and now I'm mated to the alpha of a warrior pack. The thought of not being alone again was something I hadn't allowed myself to hope in such a long time. Hestia? Her ears perk up and I know I have her attention. I'm sorry I've been such a crazy. We have been together for 700 plus years, Nat. It will take more than a couple of months of dealing with our trauma differently to break our bond. Do you think we can handle this? Being Luna? I asked nervously. I can't think of a better way to use our gift than to help those that are protecting our species. We've got this, she said together. I said as I felt Helios slice my palm. I felt the pack link snap in place as he smiled at me. He pulls me forward to his side and addresses everyone. We have all been given a second chance to be part of something greater than ourselves. This is our chance to make sure the injustice that has occurred to you doesn't become another shifter's fate. I hope each and every one of you are able to find their way back home, but for any of you that find that path blocked, there is a place in my pack for you. It won't be easy, and there is a lot of hard work ahead of us to become a strong united pack, but we have the best example of what it means to be a great pack to motivate us just next door to us. Guardian Moon is lucky to have Crescent Moon as its first and most cherished ally. I want Guardian Moon Pack to become the pack for anyone seeking a second chance to make things right. Even these pack grounds that Luna Celeste, my sister, has given to us. It is a place looking for a second chance to be something that serves a new purpose, new life. Our doors will be open to anyone looking to not be defined by their past. We have a clean slate and we will work to give anyone who crosses through the door an opportunity to become who they want to be, not who they once were. I saw Helios' words transform the face of every shifter from reserved optimism to one of hope and fierce determination. I could feel the strength and power of his voice. I was so proud to be mated to this amazing man. His words resonated through my being as well. I was one of those that also needed a new chance to make things right. White wolves were a myth, because I'd hidden from the world instead of facing it. I could have used my gifts to save others so many times over the last 700 years and instead, I'd spent almost 300 of those years hiding and running. It took seeing the vulnerability and persistence to even the scales of a group of great men who thought themselves monsters to see that the real monster was me. A coward. No more hiding, Hestia. It's time we embraced who we are. We are the White Wolf. We are made to the god of sun and war. We are their Luna. I told her. About time. With you 100% of the way, she said and howled. I also threw my head back and howled when he was done talking and heard as everyone joined in and howled back in acknowledgement to their new alpha and ally. Take your new pack on a run around the perimeter. We will set up the food for the party, Celeste suggested. Join us? I asked her. We will join you in the second round. This one is yours and Helios. We are so proud of both of you. I could hear the pride and emotion in her voice and it made me want to cry too. You won't think that after I've talked your ear off with questions, I teased. Bring it on, sister. Let's give them a run with their new pack. Celeste said her pack would join us on the next one. I told Helios. That's a great idea, Amor. Helios looked down and gave me a quick kiss. Members of the Guardian Moon, please make your way to the grassy area just behind us. Let us run. There was a lot of excitement over that as everyone made their way over. At Hestia's urging, I said, this doesn't get you out of Hestia's time with her mate. She still wants that chance to bond with Ezekiel. I said, and Helios' eyes flashed black before they went back to their beautiful brown. Count on it, he said as he laced his fingers through mine and led me down the grassy area. Shift, he shouted, and I looked in awe as our pack began shifting. Tigers, bears, wolves and pumas all together. I nodded at Helios and shifted myself. He ran his fingers through Hestia's fur before doing the same. We ran around the perimeter of our new home and it was as if by the time we made our way back to join the party, we really were one pack. I could feel Hestia's joy at running next to Ezekiel. She took every chance to nip at his tail playfully. The members of Crescent Moon were waiting for us with our clothes when we returned. We shifted back and dressed and I saw them congratulating all of us, genuinely happy for us. I knew there was still a lot of work to be done, but this really felt like the beginning of a new life. We ate our meals with everyone and an hour later, Marcus and Celeste gave us the tour of the place. I had to hand it to them. They thought of just about everything while not imposing any kind of decor on us. They really gave us a place to make our own. Celeste and Marcus left us to explore the top floor as Celeste needed to go feed the pups. We entered the master bedroom and my jaw dropped. There was a gorgeous mahogany poster bed in the middle of the room with an indigo bedsheet set. The duvet had golden suns and white moons embroidered all around it. The significance of the embroidery didn't get lost on me. Your sister really doesn't do half measures, does she? I asked Helios, who looked at me and chuckled. I don't think that's in her vocabulary, he said. He started kissing down my chin and neck. When he got to the spot where he should mark me, I felt a shiver go down my body as I felt his teeth pressing onto it. For an instant, I thought he would break the skin and complete the bond, and then I felt his body lift from mine. I sat up and noticed he was on the other side of the room, holding onto the wall for support. His teeth were elongated and he was breathing hard. His eyes kept flashing black. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I almost lost control of Ezekiel, he said as he finally managed to retract his teeth. Oh, I said, disappointed. Ezekiel wanted to mark us. Not him. Hestia whimpered in my head. Natalia, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to push you. He just wants his connection to his mate after seeing her earlier, he explained. Wait, what do you mean you weren't trying to push me? I asked as I tried to make sense of his words while Hestia was howling in my head. I don't want to screw this up. You are giving us a chance and I'm willing to give you however long it takes to be ready to complete the bond. This was just an overwhelming evening and it got really hard to control Ezekiel. It won't happen again. I'm sorry. My eyes widened and Hestia stopped howling at his words. Then I couldn't help it. I started chuckling. I fell back onto the bed, holding onto my stomach and laughing. Man, we really suck at communicating, I said. What do you mean? He asked. I sat up again and patted the space next to me on the bed. There was an apprehensive and confused look on his face as he approached slowly and sat next to me. What I mean is, I said, taking a deep breath to say what I needed to say. We were both so scared that we kept torturing each other because we thought the other person would reject us. We needed to stop that. If we couldn't talk to each other, how would we ever be in sync to lead the pack? Hestia and I thought you needed time before you were ready to mark us. After I kept the bond secret from you, we thought we needed to make you trust us before you would. We are ready, Helios. We would have marked you that night at the lab if we thought you would have let us. I watched as shock replaced the confusion and then joy replaced the shock as he absorbed what I said. You mean, I could have marked you a week ago and we, just, suck at talking? Yep. I said, smiling at him. He started chuckling. So how are we going to fix this? He asked seductively. I flipped myself over so that I ended up straddling him. For one, I think our wolves have been patient enough with ourselves. We should give them the connection they've been denied. Don't you think? I said, looking at his neck and licking my lips. Yes, do you want? I guess you do. He ended with a growl as he grabbed me as I lifted myself and licked his neck. I let my teeth elongate and felt the moan coming up from his chest as I teased the spot before I sank my teeth into his neck. I felt his hands tighten on me as he crushed me into the hardness in his pants. I felt the torrent of his emotions crash into me. His gratitude, happiness, and devotion as well as his determination to keep me safe, but above all of that, his and Ezekiel's love for us. I felt the tears stinging my eyes as I realized the depth of his love, feeling like the luckiest wolf in the world. I started kissing his ear, his cheek, his eyes, his nose, desperate to show him that we loved him even if we didn't deserve to be loved to such levels. I would spend the rest of my immortal life showing him. When I got to his lips, he grabbed my face with both of his hands and deepened the kiss. When he pulled back, he looked into my eyes and wiped a tear from my cheek. He smiled at me with glistening eyes before he kissed me again. He started kissing down my neck and I moved my head to the side to give him more access, and I could feel Hestia's love and excitement as she awaited to get her connection to her mate. Helios stopped at the crook of my neck and he sucked on the area, making me moan before I felt his teeth pierce my neck. I let my hands fall to my side as I went into a state of pure happiness as I felt our bond complete. I spent so long feeling incomplete and unworthy. Now I had him and it was the most beautiful and sacred feeling in the world. This was the most precious gift that Selene could have given me. One I had considered a curse for so long. I had my forever and I would fight every day of my eternal life to keep it. Natalia. Helios' worried voice brought me out of my bliss. I lifted my head and saw his concerned features soften to relief. You went limp. You scared me. I thought I did it wrong, he said. I smiled and cupped my hand to his cheek. The sparks burst forth at twice their usual intensity. Does this feel like you did it wrong, my Aztec god? I asked. He closed his eyes and leaned into my hand, depositing a sweet kiss on the palm. He stands us up and lays me down on the bed and then his eyes glaze over shortly before I feel a mind link pull. Yes. I growled. Don't growl at me. We have a situation. We need our Luna and Alpha downstairs, Theo says. What happened? Two of our more feral shifters are super agitated. One is demanding to see you. The other is just agitated because his behavior is overwhelming him. Celeste tried to use her Luna aura but it only helped a little. Marcus doesn't want to make them submit. He said it could hurt them now that they belong to a pack. He needs to see you, Nat, he said. Okay. I'll be right down, I told him and ended the mind link. Helios's eyes were still glazed over. A few seconds later, his eyes cleared and he looked down at me. He puts his forehead to mine and sighs. Duty's calls? He asked and I nodded. Hestia had retreated to the back of my head, no doubt talking to her mate. We went downstairs and I beelined for the clearly upset man at the edge of the tables. He was holding a butter knife, yelling something about being taken. When he noticed me coming towards him, he dropped the knife and rushed at me. I felt Helios tense next to me but I put my hand on his arm, asking him to wait. The man dropped at my feet and hugged my legs. Luna, I dreamt you were taken and I couldn't find you, he cried. I remember reading the document he had filled out for us. He was one of the shifters from the lab, a bear. He had been experimented on for 9 years. He had been a rogue before that, which meant he had been alone for even longer. It's okay, Paul. I'm okay. See? I said as I crouched to meet his eyes. He still looked slightly panicked. I looked up at Helios. Let's go sit with him for a while. He'll be fine. He just had a nightmare. We'll give the rest a little while longer to enjoy the party before we head back. I stood up and then froze when he hugged me. I patted his back a little awkwardly and when he pulled back his eyes went wide before he nodded happily and said, Alpha marked you. You'll be safe now. I was both touched and petrified as everyone started cheering at his words, my face heating up. Helios thanked everyone, then led us to where Gonzalo, Celeste, and Marcus were now sitting, all grinning at us. Paul seemed content to know that I was marked and ran off to mingle with the rest. I sighed with relief. The other shifters seemed to also have calmed down. Perhaps this was too much too soon. Celeste said as she shifted guiltily next to her mate. I shook my head and said, I think it's a good sign that only 2 of them are having issues with this much stimulation, and what you did for us is just amazing. I've never met another person with your ability to be forgiving and giving. You are one of a kind, Celeste. Marcus looked so loving and proud at his Luna that I half expected him to start peacocking around her. We talked for a while before heading back. Helios and I let Hestia and Ezekiel have their fun, and by the time we got back to our room, we basically collapsed from exhaustion. Their happiness radiated through the bond and we went to bed after a much-needed quick shower. Helios POV: It's been 2 months since we welcomed all the shifters into the pack. A few of the ones that had only been gone from their pack for under 2 years had left, but to my surprise, the rest decided to stay and train. My warriors came back, a few had even managed to find their mates while traveling on a full moon. The council had been hesitant to sanction us as a pack, but after we made our case and showed him what was happening to the shifters, they not only sanctioned us, but urged us to keep pursuing this unknown shifter while they gathered the other councils and the vampire royals to inform and form a plan. Marcus and I were also forming our own plan, including a new branch of his security business that my pack would head up. We had sold half the shipping company and became silent partners in order to focus on our new venture. My pack was training every day. The rescued shifters were almost back to their full strength and going to therapy daily. They were all finally sleeping in their own rooms and doing better each day. We got weekly reports from the therapist, letting us know which of them were ready to begin pack duties and which still needed more support. My warriors and I were buffing up as we trained our new shifter bodies. I was now training with Marcus. Ezekiel and I were getting stronger physically and our bond with each other and our mate had also grown. Nat was settling into her Luna role well and she and Celeste were becoming good friends. Her training was also going fairly well, though I was secretly happy that despite her body becoming more toned, her beautiful curves remained. We had opted for a small private Luna ceremony as I didn't want people seeing her white wolf until we had brought the black market operation down. Slowly but surely, things were coming together. I had even managed to convince the council to allow me to bring Mama Isabel as our cook. Since she was a human, there had been pushback, but considering she had been aware of the supernatural for several decades now, they finally acquiesced. The biggest struggle was getting her to agree. We had to promise her that she would be put to work, though I had made sure her assistants were aware that she was to be treated with respect and to make sure to avoid giving her heavy loads. Not that it really needed to be said, everyone had taken to her and had adopted her as the pack's unofficial mother. She always had 1 or 2 people at her beck and call any time I saw her. The biggest thorn in our side was the fact that we still had no idea where this shifter was. Evergreen was still monitoring the shipping company networks and the black market networks, but we had yet to make any headway. He also had his face recognition software running 24/7 to try to find him, but the angles from the feed and grainy quality were making it difficult. Nat kept insisting that we could use her as bait to draw them out, but, thankfully, everyone vehemently agreed that it was a bad idea. We were now 6 weeks away from Celeste and Marcus' wedding. I was headed over to Marcus' pack house now using the newly completed bridge near the river. I had volunteered to help with the security measures so that his pack members could attend the wedding, so we needed to start looking at the guest list and event program. We were also due for an update from Evergreen. I passed one of the buildings we were currently renovating. A lot of the smaller dwellings needed to be brought up to code for the warriors that had found their mates, but we were also building a few new ones. This one would be new training grounds and gym. I nodded to the workers. They were contracted from Alpharet's pack, who Marcus had introduced to me when I explained my plans for the property. His people were hard workers and things were ahead of schedule. I went up to the 3rd floor and smelled her before I saw her, and I couldn't help the smile that came to my face. I walked into the Crescent Moon offices and my eyes went straight to Natalia. She had come over to help with someone's pup that had wandered too far and fallen into the river. They weren't sure if he would make it and they asked her to see if she could reduce the swelling in the brain. She was sitting on the couch with Maya, eating from a jar of peanut butter with a spoon, a sure sign that she'd been able to help. The high calories and high protein helped her regain her energy quickly. Helios, we're just waiting for Evergreen and Danny, Celeste said without looking up from her computer. Marcus told me she had been obsessing over any outstanding work since he convinced her to leave for a week-long honeymoon. We had bets going to see how long she would actually stand to be away. I walked straight to where Natalia was sitting and put her on my lap. "You managed to help, I take?" I asked her as I wrapped my arms around her waist and put my chin on her shoulder, giving her cheek a quick kiss. "Yes, but I've never healed brain damage before, it took a lot out of me," she said as she relaxed in my arms. I knew the mate bond should help her recover from it faster. Evergreen and Danny were late and after 20 minutes, I saw Marcus Minklink, likely checking to see where they were. A few minutes later, Danny and Evergreen walk in and they are both smiling. That gets my and Ezekiel's attention and I nudge Nat a little. She had dozed off on my chest as we waited. "You two look like you just found the secret stash of Halloween candy. What did you find?" Marcus asked. First, is there still Halloween candy somewhere around the house? I love candy corn and Maya won't let me order off, he asked, making Maya snort, and second, you will see, it was worth the wait. He grinned as Evergreen plugged his laptop into the TV on the wall. The rest join us on the couches as we wait for Evergreen to begin talking. We had some activity in the feeds that are still active yesterday. There was some sort of big meeting that I was unfortunately unable to get audio for, but things have been quiet since. "Our big news," he said as he typed on his laptop and an image popped up. I sat up as I examined the image. It looked like the shifter, sort of. All the images we had of him were partially obscured or blurry because of how fast he moved when he attacked the others. Let me introduce you to Shane Doyle, CEO of CRA Pharmaceuticals, based in New York. Yesterday was the first time we've seen him facing front, and I managed to upload a clearer picture into the program and I got a hit shortly before this meeting. What little I was able to find in the last 30 minutes is this: his some more great-grandfather was the alpha of an Irish pack before they moved the pack to New York during the potato blight. His father was challenged and exiled, despite this leaving the pack penniless in the process, as the Alpha took the company and finances with him. Not sure of the reason why yet. Shane was 5 years old when this happened. They have kept a low profile since. He rarely makes public appearances. So, he's a rogue? Marcus asked. As far as we know, Alpha. He is not a part of any sanctioned pack, Danny responded. Can you print out the picture? Something about him seems familiar. I can't put my finger on it, Nat said, surprising me. She looked uncomfortable. You think you've encountered him before? Celeste asked. No, well, I don't know. I haven't been to the United States since the 1600s, but I can't be sure. Something about him is nagging at me, she said, and I could sense her uncertainty through the mate bond before she cuddled further into my arms and closed her eyes. Evergreen, why don't you send the picture to our emails and the recording of the meeting? I think a couple of my warriors know how to read lips, I said. Oh yes. Alpha Helios, great idea. I think I have a lip-reading software somewhere from my days in university. I'll dig it up and see if I can update it and send you a transcript. He said as he started running with the laptop towards the door. He stops at the door and turns around. I'm sorry, did any of you need me for anything else? He said, turning red. No, go. This shifter is the top priority, Marcus said, smiling and shaking his head. He looked back at me. Do you want to take a rain check on the wedding stuff? Your Luna is falling asleep. I am grateful that she was able to help little Lucas. I know the harder the heel, the bigger the drain. Yeah, I'll make some time tomorrow and we can chat after training, I said, getting up with Nat in my arms. Mind if I can borrow one of your guys to drive me home? Nat was pretty much out by now. She wasn't even stirring anymore. Yeah, I'll have someone bring a car for you. He said and I nodded gratefully before I left the room. A few minutes later, I passed Theo on the way into the pack house. He stops as he sees me carrying in Nat. What happened to her? He asked, his eyebrows furrowed in concern. She healed a kid that sustained brain damage when he fell in the river. She just needs to rest, I answered. The kid is okay, he asked. Yeah. She managed to heal him, I said proudly. Where are you off to? Training the new patrol group. I let Sebastian off the hook since he's got training in the morning, he answered. Don't you train in the morning too? I asked him, confused. We all train in the mornings unless you had overnight patrol duties. Yes, but he's starting in the advanced group while I've still got a bit to go in the normal. He's going to be sore enough, he laughed. I went up to our room and cradled her to me and fell asleep. I woke up an hour later as she mumbled. I couldn't quite recognize the language, but her tone was angry and sad. I could feel her through the bond. I tried to shake her awake a little but she didn't even notice. Finally, I got up and brought my laptop into our bedroom and decided to try to get some work done while keeping her close. About 15 minutes later, she stood up screaming things in that same weird language. The same phrase, over and over. Keel 2 dom, translation from Gaelic to mean, you betrayed me. Keel 2 dom, Connor. I put my laptop down and ran to the bed. I grabbed onto her and shook her awake. She was crying and kept repeating the same thing. When she finally recognized me, she grabbed onto my shirt and cried. I just held her and rubbed her back while Ezekiel was howling in my head. I think I know who that is, she said quietly a few minutes later. I looked down and she was looking up at me. Her eyes rimmed red and so much hurt in her eyes that all I could do was to hold her closer. In the early 1700s I was traveling in Europe. I went to the UK and travelled through Ireland. I was fascinated by the castles. I met Connor Walsh, my fourth mate, the second mate I rejected. I tried not to let my jealousy flow through the bond. This was so long before we even met. Instead, I focused on the hurt that I had felt while she slept and rubbed small circles on her back and waited for her to continue. Connor was the beta of his pack. We were getting to know each other. I hadn't planned on rejecting him. I was lonely and he seemed kind. They were in the middle of a territory dispute with another pack. Their alpha got injured in the fight and I healed him from the brink of death. They realized what I was and 2 days later, Connor brought me before his alpha and handed me over to him. The alpha's name was Brian Doyle. She took a steadying breath to continue. I tried to fight him and they stabbed me with silver as I tried to run away. They left me for dead. When I came to, I rejected my mate and killed him. I tried to kill the alpha too, but I have never fought before and he overpowered me. He tried to mark me against my will once he realized that I couldn't die. He said he wouldn't rest until I made him immortal too, even though I tried to tell him that I didn't have that power. He took a bunch of blood from me and tried to inject himself with it, thinking it would make him immortal. I barely escaped that night and I have never been to that country again. Shane, he looks a little different, but I think he's related to that alpha. I won't let anything happen to you, mi amor. I will tell the others. Maybe Evergreen can confirm the relation and we can get that much closer to finding him if we reach out to the council with this information. I kissed her head and mind-linked Sebastian and Gonzalo when she nodded. Natalia POV. I've been having nightmares every night since we found the identity of the shifter. Some were memories, some were nightmares of what could happen if they caught up with us. Helios said that I would speak Gaelic some nights. He would hold me and let me cry. I could sometimes feel some jealousy through the mate bond, but he said nothing. I knew he understood and loved him more for the fact that he didn't resent the fact that I had loved before. At Celeste's encouragement, I'd kicked up my training. The endorphins and feeling the new strength in my body really helped with the anxiety. Gonzalo and Evergreen had both confirmed through the meeting they had recorded that they were now aware that Ramon, Helios' Black Auction identity, and Helios were the same person. It was a good thing that the deed to the pack grounds was still going through the process of being changed into his and my name. We were safe for a little while longer, but I needed to be ready. I walked into the pack house in the evening and headed up to our room to shower and change. Danny was really happy with my progress. I had been getting a second workout each evening with Brenda when she wasn't on shift and I could feel all my muscles screaming for a hot bath. That woman took her training seriously. I loaded the bath with some essential oils and some bubble bath and went to grab some clothes for bed. I was climbing when the bathroom door opened. I love it when I see you bending over. It makes me want to do things to that gorgeous. I'm really sweaty. Let me clean myself, I groaned and then moaned as I felt him lick up my neck. You taste like flan and smell of passion fruit." His words and his breath on my ear brought me to the edge. We said nothing as we allowed our breathing to return to normal. I lay back on his chest and relaxed as I listened to his beautiful heartbeat. He kissed the side of my forehead sweetly and said, "Thank you." I turned my head to look at him. "For what?" "For letting me love you, despite everything you have been through." I felt the tears fall down my cheeks as I pulled up slightly and kissed him. "Thank you for not giving up, despite everything I said and put you through." We stayed in the tub until the water started cooling. Helios washed my body before I washed him. We got out of the tub, and he pulled the plug while I dried my body. I went to grab my pajamas to get ready for bed before he stopped me. "What are you doing?" he asked. I turned to him, confused. "Getting ready for bed." "What are you doing?" He gave me a predatory look and said, "We aren't done yet, mi vida." That was just the appetizer. I felt the jolt of desire pull at my core and licked my lips as I watched him dry his body and take 2 steps to me. He picked me up and carried me to the bedroom, where he worshipped my body until I fell asleep cradled in his arms, relaxed, satisfied and thoroughly loved. Helios POV. After making love to Nat for hours, we finally fell asleep. I woke up a few hours later when I felt her fear through the mate bond. She wasn't speaking in Gaelic, so I knew this was probably a normal nightmare, not reliving a past one. I untangled myself from her luscious body to check my phone. It was only 4 a.m. I sighed as I put my phone back on the nightstand and pulled her back into my arms, trying to soothe the bad dream away. Ezekiel was no help. He just whimpered non-stop. I rubbed her arms and kissed her mark and she slowly calmed down. I didn't like how badly this man affected her. Even after knowing what his ancestors did, I wished I could somehow take this pain from her. I could tell there was more than just fear underneath everything. Ezekiel had talked to Hestia and told me they felt it was somehow their fault. Something in their gut was telling them that this was all because of her. I didn't have answers, and I wished I did, but no matter what his motivations, his actions were his own. He would have to face them all one day, just like I do. Every day I wake up, I carry all the deaths in my soul, and just hope to do better, so I can honor their deaths since they couldn't live their lives. I threw my leg over hers, pulling her closer. It was my favorite way to sleep, every part of me touching her. Even the first days, when I tried not to crowd her, I'd always wake up a mess of limbs over hers. She told me she didn't mind, so I stopped fighting it. I slept alone for too long. I wanted to feel her next to me for the rest of my immortal life. I just needed to get rid of one. Cut the head of the snake. I mind-linked Theo to meet me after his patrol shift and tried to go back to sleep, but around 5 a.m. I felt a change in the air. "Intruders at the gate," Theo mind-linked. I could hear the worry in his voice. I untangled myself and shook Natalia awake as I pulled some shorts on. "We've got company. I need to go check it out," I said as I kissed her sleepy face. "I'll be down in a moment." "I need clothes," she said, getting up. I started walking down the stairs when Theo mind-linked me again. The panic and urgency in his voice made me speed up. "Lock down the pack house. They've crashed through the gate." I jumped over the rail of the last floor and pushed one of the panic buttons Evergreen's security team had installed. I heard the metal shutters begin to lower. It should also be sending automated messages to all of my warriors and their mates on their phones, letting them know we are fighting, and for the women that can't fight, to take shelter in the basement. I began walking towards the door when I saw Sebastian running down the stairs toward me. Helios. I heard Nat's voice from the stairs, but she was too far up. Stay there. We've got intruders, I told her. She said, and I could hear her steps speed up. Intruders in pack grounds. Meet us outside. No one attacks us on our own land, I sent a pack-wide link as I got to the door. I opened the door as a number of SUVs were speeding towards us. I paused as I watched Theo's wolf jump over the last one before I heard the loud sound of a rocket escaping the barrel of the launcher, and I watched as it sped towards us. I grabbed Sebastian and pushed him to the right as the rocket hit the left side of the pack house. I feel the blast propel us forward and I lose my grip on him. I feel something hit my side and everything goes black as my head hits the ground. Marcus POV Alpha. Evergreen's mind link pushes me awake. Evergreen. What's happening? I said while thinking, this had better be an emergency. Guardian Moon has activated their lockdown measures. I've patched into their cameras and their gates were rammed down by SUVs. They're making their way to the pack house, he said. We've been trying to find these lab guys before they found Nat. It looks like we failed. There's no one else that would be attacking Helios. He had no enemies and, as a newly sanctioned pack, he was protected by the Council for a year. No pack would be stupid enough to try to take on a pack under the protection of the Council. It would be like declaring war against every sanctioned pack in the United States. I looked down briefly at my still sleeping Celeste. I wasn't going to like her going, but I knew how much Helios and Nat meant to her. With her offensive power, there was no way I would convince her to stay behind. I would just have to set some rules. Crescent Moon Warriors, our ally, Guardian Moon, is under attack. Meet me in front of the pack house. The rest, head to your bunkers or the pack house. We're initiating emergency lockdown until the threat is eliminated. I sent out a pack-wide message as I got up and out of bed. Celeste was hot on my heels as I rushed to the closet for clothes. I turned to my pregnant mate and pleaded, already knowing what her answer would be but needing to give it a try. Please stay here. Marcus, no. I can help. Celeste begged. It's a few men in SUVs, Celeste. We outnumber them by a lot. Then there's no harm in me going, my love, she said as she slipped a shirt over her head and a pair of pants. I sighed and pulled her to me. We do this my way, okay? Shield up at all times, stand behind me and give me your fire without you burning, so they think it's my power. Like we practiced. No running off on your own. I would die if something happened to you. She nodded her big eyes at me and kissed me. I groaned, sometimes I wished she wasn't so good. We met Dad and Marie making their way towards our suite. Go son, we'll watch the kids. Celeste, take care of my grandson in there, he said as he gave her a quick hug. Alpha, they've launched a rocket at the pack house. Most of the pack house is intact, but Helios and Sebastian are unconscious. They were too close to the blast. There are rogues running through the broken gates. Okay. We're on the way. I told him and cut off the mind link, grabbing Celeste's hands as we hurried down the last flight of stairs. When we got to the first floor, I was glad to see most of my pack already waiting there for me. I felt the pull of a mind link. Marcus. We're outnumbered. We need your help. Nat sounded like she was in pain and in a panic. We're aware of the situation. We'll be there with help momentarily. Hang in there, Nat. Are Sebastian and Helios okay? They are hurt but alive. I'm trying to heal Sebastian first, but the damage is intense. She said. I will be there shortly. We'll make sure you have space to heal. Thank you, she half sobs and my heart breaks for her. I address my warriors. These guys have been back and now they are being attacked. Their only enemy is the very same people that tortured half of them. Their actions against shifters cannot go unpunished. We will show them what it means to be an ally and friend of Crescent Moon. They are not alone. Shift and let us run, I said, and there were growls of agreement before the loud sounds of cracking bones engulfed the air. My warriors began to run while Celeste, Gabriel, and I stayed behind. Go Gabriel, meet us at the gates. We're taking a shortcut, I smirked at him. He nodded, shifted, and ran. I turned to the love of my life. Remember to lie, stay behind me and don't let them know the fire belongs to you. Climb on my little monkey, I said, turning my back to her. This should be simple enough. We have practiced it in our training. If she fed me her fire, and attached herself to me while she channeled her shield, it looked like I was the one with all the power. I wouldn't have her become a target. I felt her baby bump on my back as she pressed her stomach to me. I hoped I would not live to regret this. I began walking towards the river as I felt Celeste's fire flowing from her hands begin to cover my body. I could feel her concentration as she made sure she refrained herself from being engulfed in fire as her shield surrounded us. I love our Aztec goddess, Atlas purred proudly. Ready to lie? I asked her as I readied for the jump. Let's go help our friends, she said as she kissed between my shoulder blades and gripped me tighter. We landed right in front of Helios. Natalia was healing Sebastian and I saw Theo checking over Helios. I'm hoping both look worse than they were. I turn my attention to the fight and begin instructing my pack of the places that need the most help. There's more of them than I thought there would be, but we still outnumber them. I gather some of Celeste's fire and begin making a dent in the numbers. These people need to die so all shifters can be safe. Theo POV I hate patrol duty. It was boring and tedious and Seb kept partnering us with the newer trainees. I understood as gammas, it was our responsibility, but running for hours on end was not my favorite part of the day. We had been on high alert since they discovered Helios and Ramon were the same person and everyone was on edge. It's been 2 weeks and we've learned nothing new. They had gone dark and something about this whole thing rubbed me and my wolf, Percy, the wrong way. Well, outside the obvious fact that he's been experimenting on shifters. I may not have any particular gift like Helios and Nat, but I have learned to trust my intuition. Each time I'd ignored it, I'd definitely been proven I should have done otherwise. I was a couple hours into the patrol when I heard Helios come through the mind link. When you're done with patrol, Theo, I'd like you to meet me in the office." Helios' voice came through. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "It's time to consider letting them track us to draw them out." "Are you going to let Nat be bait?" I asked incredulously. "No, of course not, but there's another person he's trying to track down." "You're going to let yourself be taken again?" "I don't think Luna is going to go for it. We've got to consider it at least. We've gotten nowhere and there are shifters being experimented on every day we do nothing. I've got 3 hours left to the shift. Do you want me to leave early?" I asked hopefully. "No, it can wait until after. Everyone's asleep now anyway. I'll link Sebastian and Gonzalo too once you're off patrol." I nodded, forgetting that he couldn't see that. "I'm still adjusting to the mind link. I'll link you when I'm on the way. Be careful." I Alpha," I teased, and I could almost see him rolling his eyes at me as he cut off the mind link. We ran the perimeter a few more times, making sure to point out things to look for as we go. We were running back around towards the front when I felt the change in the air. Like something was coming. It was that sixth sense we always had before a battle. A certain charge. It was like we could smell the adrenaline permeating through the air. "Seb," I checked to see if he was awake. "I'm awake. Do you feel it too?" "Yes, hang on, someone's pulling at the mind link," I said. "Gamma Theo, there are several black SUVs heading towards the gate," the guard said. "On my way," I said and mind-linked Helios, Seb, and Gonzalo. "Intruders at the gate, we're going to check it out." I instruct my patrol group and we start making our way towards the gate. "Gamma Theo, they aren't slow," the mind link shuts off mid-sentence as I hear the breaking of metal. "Lock down the pack house. Someone's crashed through the gate." I screamed at Helios as I saw 5 SUVs rush past us. A few bullets whizzed by us but thankfully none hit. I hear the emergency system engage as the pack house begins to lock down. I watched as the last SUV opens the sunroof and a man with a long stick pops out. It took me a moment to realize it was a rocket launcher and they were aiming at the pack house. Percy skids to a stop and changes direction. "We need to stop them." We struggle to catch up to the SUVs and I watch in horror as Seb and Helios come out of the pack house doors. I jump, hoping to the goddess I'm on time. I manage to grab onto the arm aiming the bazooka, but I hear the rocket leave the barrel as I fall to the other side of the SUV, the man's arm still in Percy's muzzle. My heart stopped as I watched the rocket fly towards the pack house. The rocket misses the center of the house but hits the shuttered windows, sending Seb and Helios in the air from the blast. I feel the impact to his body as if it were my own and I can't help but whimper as I watch the love of my life land on the grass like a rag doll. I don't even realize that Percy is running us towards our mate. All I can do is stare, waiting, hoping, willing him to move as I try to mind-link him to no avail. I am dimly aware of the howls I hear in the distance and the fighting that has begun. I shifted back and gathered him in my arms. "Seb, wake up baby. Please. Wake up. I plead. He's still breathing. He's alive," Percy howls as we listen to his erratic heartbeat. "It can't end like this. We waited 187 years to be able to be together without hiding." Helios not only approved, but Selene gave us her blessing when she mated us to each other. We didn't go through everything we did just to have it end like this. Theo, check on Helios. I got him, Nat said as she dropped down next to me. I growled at her as I held him closer. She can't possibly expect me to leave his side. Nat grabbed my face in her hands and made me look her in the eye. I won't let him die. Trust me. Go check on Helios. I'll link Marcus. I gave her a nod before I reluctantly moved away from Seb and watched her put her hands over his heart. I ran over to Helios, who was also unconscious. I started looking over him for wounds. There were a couple of scratches from debris, burns, and his ears were bleeding from being so close to the blast, but otherwise looked fine from the back. I rolled him over and cursed under my breath. There was a large piece of metal embedded deep into his side. I looked over at Nat, who was still working on Seb. She had moved away from his heart, which gave me hope. Nat, however, was already looking tired and there was blood dripping down the side of her face. I grabbed Helios by the arms and dragged him over to Natalia, who whimpered when she looked at her mate but kept healing Seb. I could hear her whispering to herself, he's immortal. He will survive. He will be okay. He will be okay as she continued to heal Seb. I could see how much it hurt her not to run over to heal him and I appreciated her sacrifice to save Seb. I saw a bright light above us and then Marcus landed in front of us. He had Celeste hanging onto his back like a monkey, her fire engulfed Marcus' entire body and her shield surrounded them both. I was infinitely grateful to Marcus for risking his Luna, knowing very well that she was one of the most powerful offensive weapons he had. I saw his pack rush past me towards the aggressors. Our pack had dealt with all the guns by now, but we were still outnumbered. Help me get the metal out, Nat said. I looked down at Seb. His heartbeat was strong and the color was back in his beautiful face. He's fine. He will wake up shortly. I promise. I need to heal Helios, she panted. I nodded and grabbed onto the shard of metal and pulled. Helios groaned, which, if you asked me, was a good sign. When Nat's hands went over his side, I stood up. Take care of our mates. I have to go help. I told her and when she only grunted in acknowledgement, I shifted and let Percy take control. We barreled into one of the wolves that is biting into one of Crescent Moon's warriors' back legs. We find it easy to distinguish from the smell who belongs to which side, since the rogues smelled foul. I started shouting instructions to our people on where to go and who to help through the mind link. I would imagine that Marcus is doing the same from his protective stance over Nat and Helios. He himself is throwing fireballs while keeping Celeste behind him. We jump over Gonzalo, who is holding his own well, and grab the rogue on top of one of our warriors by the neck and quickly snap it. Unceremoniously, we drop and run over to help one of our bears, who's been fighting against 3 wolves. We feel something coming from our side and Percy turns in time to dodge the wolf that dives at us. We keep running and Percy spits out the rogue's throat as he keeps beelining to the bear to help. We jump and land on the back of one wolf, hearing the satisfying crack of his spine under our paws. We grab the other by the neck and flip him off the bear and against a tree. He doesn't move, so I turn towards the remaining wolf, who now realizes the bear only has one target, him. He tries to back up before the werbear's massive paw swipes at his head, sending him careening to the ground, blood already oozing out giant gashes on his face. I look at the scene before me. The tide is turning and more of the rogues' pack are falling. I see the man from the email climbing out of one of the SUVs and I skulk around towards the back, unseen. He came into our pack and hurt our people. He hurt my mate. Rage is building more and I realize that some of it isn't mine. Seb. I pause as I wait to hear his voice. I'm here. Are you okay? His beautiful voice flitters into my mind. I want to cry of happiness and I feel Percy's tail wag as we continue to stalk from the shadows. I can hear through the mind link that he's fighting already. I am now. You scared out of me. The man from the email is by the last SUV. Don't do anything crazy, baby. Helios is almost fully healed. You know me, I said. That's why I'm telling you, he half teases. I want to laugh, but tense as I see another man carrying a second bazooka on his shoulder. I need to get rid of it. I'm about to link him when their leader speaks. Enough fighting. We've come here for one reason. We don't need to destroy everyone to get what we want, he says. I think. This man knows he's beaten and is trying to salvage his mission. What reason is that? Helios' voice comes from the side. I want the white wolf, he said, and I had to struggle not to growl with everyone else. My eyes are still on the price. I need to get rid of the rocket launcher. She doesn't belong to you. She doesn't belong to anyone. She is my mate. Oh, is he marked? That makes things easier. I, Shane Doyle, leader of the rogues, challenge you for your title of Alpha, your pack, and Luna, he said, and my eyes widened in surprise. I accept. Tell what's left of your people to stop their attack or I will rip out each of their throats. I look over to where Helios is standing and my jaw drops. He is standing in front of Celeste and Marcus, one hand clutching his side lightly and I can make out the trickle of blood still trickling down from the wound. There were 2 handprints on either side of his face and 1 palm on his chest. Celeste's fire burning behind him looked like he was on fire himself. It made him look. This is our Aztec Alpha, Gonzalo proudly spoke what we were all thinking through the pack link and the entire pack howled in support, followed shortly by the warriors of Crescent Moon. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.